Yeah, I've got a couple of messages about that.
Good evening. Welcome to the Santaquin City Council work session. It's Tuesday, June 6th, and it's 5:30 and just a little bit. So welcome to the meeting. Roll call is Councilman Meekum has been asked to be excused tonight. The rest of the council are all here, as are the city administration. So we are ready to go. I'd like to invite somebody to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I will.
Thanks, Betsy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd also like to ask if someone would offer an invocation or give us an inspirational thought.
I can do that, Mayor, if you want me to.
Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee at this time and thank thee for the opportunity we have to come and meet and discuss the needs and concerns of Santaquin City. And we ask thy spirit to be with us, thy safety to be upon us and upon our families as we're away. Help us to understand and know and do thy will, and help us to do what's best for the residents of Santaquin. We thank thee for this opportunity to serve, and we say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. We're ready to do some discussion on these items tonight, so I guess we'll follow the agenda since it's there. Maybe we'll adjust a few things as we go, but we're good to go. Would you like to give us an update on the water, Norm?
Sure. On the water report, I'm happy to report that we no longer have water running down several streets in town, where things are calming down a little bit up the canyon, although there's still a lot of water up there. I'll pull up the graph and kind of give you an idea of where we're at. This is the graph of the stream flow over the last month. So you can kind of see there in the mid part of May, for about a week, we had some pretty high flows there, up to 263 CFS. We're down now, hovering in the 140 to 160 range, and continuing to work our way down. So that's really, really good. When we were up closer to the 200 CFS mark, we were running a lot more water. It was overflowing pipes and inlets and culverts and just about every other place that it could find to overload in the city. And we did have some running through a couple of streets, and we closed those streets. And but we haven't had water running in those streets now for several days. There was a little bit there yesterday and on Sunday down in the Summit Ridge area, but they've made some adjustments. The crews have made some adjustments with the irrigation company, and things are again continuing to slow down, but slow down slowly. We would expect it to come down a little bit faster, but there's just still a lot of water up there. There's still, I don't know if you've seen the reports, even in Payson Canyon and Nephi Canyon and lots of other canyons, there's just still a ton of water and a ton of snow up there. So we expect to see it high like this for a while, but we do believe that we've hit the peak, and things are coming down, and they're much more controllable as well. So things are going good that way. We haven't shown any water up in the Snowtail site for probably 2 weeks, but
or more.
The problem with it is that's only at 7,800 feet. There's still 2,500 foot of elevation and lots of mountain up there that still has a lot of water in it. So, but things are going good. I think that we've along with the irrigation company and the county and all the partners that we've worked with to try and mitigate, I think we've done a good job. I think we ended up with about 25,000 sandbags. We probably have 5,000 of those left over. That great thing we don't need. The next day or two, we will probably be moving some of those ones that are still closed streets. We'll be moving sandbags out of the way and getting that going. But we're just kind of a little hesitant, just because we got a little bit of water coming around the mountain over the weekend, and we think that we've got that calming down a little bit. But we're just going to stay safe and keep things going where we need it to go, and making sure that we're protecting homes. So.
And watch for Angel Moroni.
On the mountain, that's right.
Yeah.
Is there a plan for restoring what was eroded along Center Street?
There is actually the Public Works crews last Friday and yesterday, we're out helping with driveways and restoring driveways at the beginning. That's the first thing, is to get people access back into their homes. And then from there, we will continue to go in and fill those areas in with road base and compact it and just get it back to some type of normalcy that's been washed mostly downstream. So yeah, that's been ongoing and been something that we've been doing, and we've been trying to work with the residents there and get them access back to their homes. And that may be several weeks before we get that completely restored, but that's where we're headed, and yes, it will be.
Okay, thank you.
I would indicate also that we've put in, that the county has, Utah County has declared a state of disaster, not a state of emergency, but a state of disaster for somewhere north of $10 million combined between us, and I think there was 8 or 10 other cities that put in with the county, and so they're looking for either federal or state funds to be able to help with that. My understanding is that there's a $3 million threshold. We've compiled costs and estimates and that kind of thing, and given that to the county, and so there may be some funding to help us with everything from restoring those streets to cleaning out storm drains that are now filled with rocks and gravel and silt and those types of things. We don't know where that's going to go, but that they're working on that now, and we hope to be able to have some relief of where we could potentially be at for that.
Yeah, please know that that funding does not include anything except publicly owned property,
That's correct.
Equipment, and things such as that. No private entities can receive this funding. It's too bad, but that's the rules.
Right. So we'll see where that's coming down. We've also submitted some additional costs. Chris has been working on, so that first bit of money that I was talking about are damages, actual damages to roads, and again, the storm drains and asphalt. We anticipate we're going to see sinking and settling of roads and sidewalks and other things that were submerged that just aren't supposed to be submerged like that. And so we anticipate that there's going to be some more damage, and we'll watch that and hopefully go on. But that's one part of it. The other part of it is that the county is also looking at mitigation costs, and we're in the process of trying to submit that as far as everything from filling sandbags to volunteer hours, filling those sandbags, to loading and placing and doing all of those things that we've done throughout the last 6 weeks to protect homes and businesses to be able to get through this high water. And so again, there may be some funding coming. Nothing has been allocated at this point in time, but that's the intention of the county with that disaster mitigation, is to hopefully get some either federal or state funds to help pay for some of these costs that we have already incurred, and other damage that could continue to be present itself now that there's no water there. When we submitted the report, there was still water flowing there, so we really couldn't see what the damages were at that point, but we've estimated that with the county. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about that.
Are we going to work together with Summit Creek Irrigation at all as far as cleaning out the irrigation ditches?
So yeah, that would Councilmember Sidaway and I were talking about this before the meeting. There's a new Mississippi River Delta out by our lagoons. If you haven't seen that, yeah. it's I would estimate several hundred truckloads of gravel that have been deposited there, because as the waters rushed through and brought debris and gravel and stuff with it. So the answer to that is yes, we will be working on cleanup efforts, and that's not been contemplated in any of the two things that we're doing with the county as far as damages and mitigation efforts. So yeah, there's going to be some ongoing work that we have there.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Anything else? I think there's some other discussions that we'll have as we kind of go along and get this. And it will be good to talk about even what we can think of in the future for a better flood plan and how we could host the cost for the multi-millions of dollars it would take to do something like that. Something that could carry a significant amount of water and reduce the need for ditches in the city, or even down through into Genola. Maybe there's another way we can do this, and that'll be in the plans.
Yeah, so I would just remind the council and mayor that we do have we are co-sponsors on a project with the county to increase the size of the debris basin at the mouth of the canyon, as well as the conveyance mechanism all the way through to Summit Creek Irrigation Reservoir number 2, which is in a roundabout way saying that's where the water went this year, but considerably more. The design standards that we're designing to for NRCS design standards, federal standards, are probably 6 or 7 times the amount of flow that we saw this year. We probably saw 100 CFS going through the townhomes this year down in the Summit Ridge area, but that road is actually designed to take somewhere between 300 and 500 CFS through there while still not damaging homes or structures or anything like that. Now, that's a lot of water, but we didn't see that much this year, but the design storm that they're looking at is somewhere between 600 and 800 CFS that would be either conveyed through that area or around, or basically from the debris basin all the way down through to get to reservoir number 2, to get a significant amount of water down there at some point in time when that storm does come. We've been very, very blessed this year. We've had a lot of cooler weather, warmer weather, cooler weather cycles that have really helped us to attenuate, even though we've had a lot of water, and even though there's been some damage to property, we've done pretty good. As far as I know, there's only been one home that's flooded, and that was about 2 months ago, actually, before the high water even came, and that was because a private ditch or a private pond overflowed and flooded one basement. So other than that, we've not flooded one structure in the city, which is just astounding for how much water we've been able to bring down.
You know, during the floods of '83, we went all the way up to the Memorial Day weekend before that heat up. Yep. And so you take all that water that was bled out before we got to that point, and then you can put your mind at, wow, we got that starting in a matter of a couple of days all at once. And if you can only imagine how much water we got, the washout where our bike park is, from just where you make the turn from the old climbing hill part of it up to the cattle guard, was washed out where all of the road is in there now. It took out that whole road. And so all of that that's back in there is fill. And this year's flooding, which was significant, was kept in the bottom of that channel. Never did get up to the riprap that was put on the side. So the mitigation efforts that have been handled over the years from previous councils and mayors, as this has been on top of everybody's mind, kept it in check. We didn't have those big kind of washouts. However, I can't say that for the canyon up above. And by the way, the canyon is supposed to be bid out in the next week or two. So should be already underway to get the thing fixed. So we'll know more coming shortly. Okay, great. John, do you want to stand up and talk about the RAP tax and the recommendations that came from the RAP tax committee?
Yes, I'd love to. Before we jump into that, just a quick history. So the RAP tax is Recreation, Arts, and Parks. It's that 1 penny on every $10 that sales tax goes toward this. It's for a 10-year period. You can see that we've done 3 years. These are the amounts where we put funds each year. We started out with just over $50,000, and now we're up to about $130,000 both last year, and that'll be the amount for 2023-24. And as you can see, McDonald's being built and other places, it'll just continue to rise, which is great. So last year's priorities, we were the ones in yellow. We're able to get some amenities to support the pickleball courts, the ice machine, which we now have a little soda machine out there. Our concession stands, we have 3 of them. Last night, an example, they brought in $450 just in a couple hours. And we don't have lights, so we don't have people there for like 4 hours. So just a small pocket, so that's been well worth it. Different things with banners and our phone app, which we have over 780 people that are now following that. And different art festivals and picnic tables. And then the big one is Theater Island Park. We've actually put the pavilion in, and Public Works, sometime over the next month as they get a chance to catch their breath, they're going to help us actually put the concrete base on that So that was last year. We continue to just go through a large variety of projects and get a lot accomplished. So just a couple notes with what we've done this year, and these are notes that we've specifically shared with our RAP Tax Committee as we were prioritizing, but we did not have any nonprofits that applied, so all the recommendations came from our department. Traditionally, we've done a lot of projects on the park side. This year, you're going to notice that we've mixed that up just a little bit to kind of balance things out. We've taken into consideration other projects that are already being funded, and so we haven't really focused a lot of projects where they're already getting funding. So focusing on projects that needed a funding source. And then we actually gave the RAP Tax Committee some prioritization on what the Recreation Department felt was most needed. Just we kind of, out of, let's say, 10 things, we said, hey, we really recommend these top 3. I mean, obviously you make a call, but that kind of helped them too to see where we felt the most need, where we could get our biggest bang for our buck and help the most residents. Perfect, and I kind of mentioned that on number 5. So let's jump over to the spreadsheet.
Okay.
So again, like I mentioned, $130,000. Everything minus the yellow was what was given to the RAP Tax Committee, and we focused a lot. If you pull up just a tad bit, that first area right there is all recreation focused. So a little bit more focus this year instead of a big park project. Everything from matching our archery grant that we've received to develop an archery course, to developing a new floating wood floor under our existing padding at the rec building. We have a lot of people that do fitness and they just complain that they're on that heavy cement and it's hard on their joints. And so we've actually talked to the Public Works Department. They said maybe in the fall we could work with them on that one, and just you build basically a little wooden lattice. Instead of paying someone $50,000 to come in, we would do it ourselves for about $6,000. Expanding our cheer and tumbling programs by buying more mats. Developing a new fitness program called spinning, which is when you bike in one place, especially where we're starting to develop these trails. There's a lot of people that bike, and in the winter, it's really going to be awesome. Year round, but awesome. We have one of our staff members, Leah Hill, actually is a spinning instructor, and she actually teaches over at Vasa. So we'll still keep her here a little bit more to do spinning, if that is approved. Senior programs. This one you might have caught your eye and wondered a little bit about that. What we traditionally do, as you know, with the seniors is we have Thursday is their home cooked meal. So what we wanted to do as we go into the new city hall is bring them to the building more frequently. So we've talked about doing a lighter meal on Tuesdays, more of a soup and salad. The current first meal is actually paid by MAG and the city. This one would be paid 100% by the participant with a little bit of a stipend here, as well as we've reached out to the Eldridge Fund that gives us $2,000 a year.
How far does that 2,500 go in helping that?
That's going to allow us to do it every Tuesday throughout the year, and then we would charge. Well, that's if we charge $5 per person, versus right now the Thursday meal is $3 per person. It just helps us cover the cost of the staff. They don't have as much staff prep time just because it's just a lighter soup and salad. I think the thought from staff is if we try this year one and it looks like it works, then we could go to MAG, and MAG could actually step in if we so chose and do a full second day. That would be something that we'd have to look both with MAG and also city budget down the road to see if that would be feasible.
Right, and I'm not advocating for it, but there are some cities that do meals every day, 5 days a week. Again, I'm not advocating for that. I think John's got the right idea, and the seniors have got the right idea to kind of just expand that slowly. So,
did anybody ask the seniors about that?
We have, yeah.
And they're all pretty good about it. Huh?
Two meetings
Yeah.
ago, they were asked, and half the attendees expressed interest.
And I've had several since I've been going the last 2 years who have said, when could we get another lunch day? And I think there are enough that desire that. And I think the food is great, and to make sure that it provides nutrition. Just as important is the social contact.
We'll still follow those guidelines of what they do under MAG's umbrella.
Yeah.
So it's nutritious and so forth. But I think the senior staff, I think, are a little bit apprehensive with what does this look like with the second day, and so I think we're helping them as far as the recreation department side with Shauna Joe and myself to be able to step in and say we can probably do this without. They're just so used to the full 2 days of food prep for a big meal, and it's not going to be that. It's just going to be a couple hours right before and then a serving. We do want to expand different activities that we can do with low cost to no cost while people are there, not just Tuesday or Thursday, but also Tuesday. Things like quilting and additional games above and beyond what they're currently doing, different activities. So we would actually schedule things before that and then things after lunch. So this is kind of just a summary. It's just a little snippet to contribute, but I think it's going to have large dividends. Enhancing our snack shack. So we found out that we wanted to start serving burgers again. It's been about 5, 6, 7 years that we haven't served burgers, and there's some significant improvements that need to be made to our grill hood, as well as some of the ice things the frozen things that we serve. We need some actual freezer space. And so that's what the next one is enhancing our menu at our snack shacks, expanding, replacing equipment. Cornhole has been so popular. We just bought the cheaper ones, and after a couple years, we also borrow them out to Payson for their events. We scratch their back, and they scratch ours with some different events, and we're just finding that those boards are starting to kind of fall apart. So we're going to actually get the big heavy-duty boards that we'll use and probably not rent out or lease out. We'll lease out the old ones, but just keep the big ones for our events. Some soccer goal replacement. Mirrors to complement all the other improvements to the new city hall. There's one room specifically where we anticipate some youth dancing classes, some ballet, and maybe bar and some other things that would have that room downstairs in city hall is going to have its own special wood floor. So we'll have that in 2 different spaces.
Would that include a bar?
Not necessarily the bar itself initially. So right now, just the mirrors.
Because the little PVC stands are no-go.
Correct. We've actually gotten rid of those. They kept tipping over.
Yeah, they weren't safe, and they weren't the right height. So the bar needs to be the right height and stable.
But that's a program that we could definitely consider with the new building. All of those were approved. The last one that was not approved, and I would say that it wasn't approved not because it wasn't a good idea to develop kind of a youth scholarship program. We work with people when they come in and they really want to play and they can't afford it. We want everyone to have the opportunity to participate in a sport, in a class. We just, as a group, just felt like there needs to be a sustainable funding source year after year for something like that, and so we didn't want to jump into it without having. So that's why that one was not approved. As we get down to the second area, so that was the recreation, the arts. And I apologize as I'm talking through this. Feel free to ask questions during as well as after. The committee really felt strongly about the need for a new piano at City Hall. And in fact, they wanted to even make sure that we had the funding appropriate to get a really nice piano. And so they actually budgeted an extra $5,000 than what was requested. They also moved some funds around and wanted to put more money toward the art festival and concerts in the park because those have been so popular. Up to $10,000 there. The museum strategic experiential master plan. This one we applied for a grant that I really felt like we had a good shot with T-Mobile, and we didn't get it. And so we just felt that that is the next step for the museum to really advance, is to develop a strategic plan that tells us where we're going, how could that building be sustainable for the city, what activities could we do above and beyond what we're currently doing, how can we adjust what we're currently doing. And so that plan was recommended by the committee for the total of $23,000. They did not fund the fun bus wrap, but they did want to try wrapping a couple utility boxes on Main Street. You notice up by like Maverick and different stops, kind of by our clock tower, there's some actual UDOT boxes. UDOT will give you permission if you go in and wrap them and follow their permitting process. So the cost there is more just the wrapping. I don't think that it's really a cost to actually do it. It's more just working with UDOT. I forget, there is someone that works for UDOT that told me about the program. Jared Jeffs.
For another year, we will get more utility boxes at Center Street as well, because we'll get a new light there, hopefully by the end of the year, but it may be this time next year before we would see it.
Okay. And I know Centricom's got different boxes as well. We just thought initially Main Street for starters, and then we've got years worth of amazing photos, like photo contest winners, maybe to start, and we could come back to council and get your feedback on which ones to start with. But instead of trying to, we found through study that they really prefer not to paint on those utility boxes, but to actually wrap them so that they can still get in them and that type of thing. And then the paint, there's some up at Park City Way that have been there for 10 years and they're still in good shape. So, community art. Any questions on the art side? Okay, and then the park side, again, as I mentioned earlier, that we've just really focused on big park projects every single year. This year we just felt like we're kind of in between park projects, where we just finished Harvest View Phase 2, that we're not quite to City Center Park yet, that there's still a lot of things that need to happen before, in fact, I think the committee talked about maybe putting a large sum of money toward that one next year, if we were a little bit closer to really going with that. Prospector View, where we've approved the bike skill park design at $5,000. The committee thought giving an additional $11,000 to help build that, to pay for supplies and equipment and different amenities as we design that. They thought that was a good idea. And then developing community garden, and they felt like $14,000 was sufficient for that. Maybe just a recap of community garden. I know that's a topic that we've discussed at a past meeting. The location that we're tentatively looking at, and again, this is something that we've looked at and it's not been 100% approved, but we were kind of looking at downtown per grant. And then again, the grant wasn't successful, so we really aren't limited to downtown. But we were looking at the lot next to the library, but far to the west fence by the property owner. So not kind of in between the little cabin, the DUP cabin, and the far fence. That was the site that last time we talked with staff that we kind of felt most comfortable, and we'll probably need to revisit that again. Maybe we could pull that up and just take a peek. The reason why that cost is a little bit higher is if you want to put an actual, like maybe a 6-foot fence around it. I've seen some. I was up in Vineyard recently, and Vineyard actually didn't have a fence around theirs. Theirs was just out in the open next to a tennis court. That's really the bulk of the cost is fencing, but yeah, right where Norm's pointing is kind of where we thought that we could.
Again, that's what's been envisioned, but that doesn't have to be what is. We can do it. I mean, we could do it at Harvest View. We could do it, a number of places, but.
Yep.
Well, I think that's a great location.
Yeah.
Kind of in the center of town.
Yep.
Yeah. And I could envision that also being incorporated into the employee wellness program. That could be one of the activities, one of the mental wellness days, physical wellness days, getting out in the dirt. There's been a lot of research done about the benefits to that of mental health.
Sure.
So that could be incorporated there, as well as, just with the community in general and the youth council.
Yeah, it's unutilized ground at this point, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And again, you got some parking there.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, is there any of those items that the council would like to discuss or ask more questions?
these are all numbers that the RAP tax committee just came up with and pretty much the list, or did you develop the
The
list?
department developed them. So what we did is we had a couple meetings with them throughout the year, and we asked them and our community services board, what are some things, and then of course as staff we see certain needs, especially on the equipment side. What are things that you see that we need? And again, trying to avoid things that we're already paying for with operations or with park impact fees, things that are like that museum study that there's really no other funding source for it. What a great way to be able to, put money toward it. So, but they vote, and so the prioritization on the far left was us just making some recommendations. If you had to make some cuts, we highly recommend if you could keep the top ones. We feel like, but they really ultimately voted as an advisory committee to go with the ones that are in the yellow.
You've got about 30,000 and change left over, and you're going to use that for things you may want to go back to, like the stage to match the Greg Fowkes money and things like that, right?
There's actually just 3,000 that was not used.
I thought it was
It's
160.
130.
It's 130.
And I would note to the council and the mayor that this does not have to be used every year. If I remember correctly, Payson saved up several years worth of theirs for their pickleball courts. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just letting you know that it doesn't have to be all budgeted in one year. You can roll some over if we have some that, in fact, I think we've done that before where projects have come in under a little bit and we just roll it over into the next year and used it. So that's where that stands, and it doesn't actually all have to be used now.
Well, I
Just
think it's fine to hold off on the stage as much as that's something that I want to have happen, and I think would be an amenity that would be widely used and beneficial for our residents and our community. I think it's wise to hold off on that till we're really ready to move forward with it, and so I'm fine with that. And the other things, I think they're great. In the meetings that Art and I have had with you and with Annette in regard to our assignment with the museum, Annette is on board with having that experiential design done. And so this was the missing piece that we were looking for, waiting on that grant. And so I know that she supports moving forward with that too as the museum director. And so I think they're great. I really like the variety, and that residents who are interested in lots of different things will be able to benefit from these ideas.
I'd just like to make a comment as the council that sits on that committee. I thought it was a really healthy discussion. It was a good discussion. There was some give and take on the museum part, and what was the other one that the garden.
The community garden.
Community garden. But as we talked through it, I think the committee came together really well, and I'd like to give a shout out to them for going with this, being that it affects a lot more things than just concentrating on a lot of the money on one thing. We're covering a lot of things, so I thought the committee done a good job of spreading that out.
Okay. Anything else? We're not going to vote on this tonight. We're going to move that until the next time. So basically, if any big surprise came along, we would maybe make a change, but at least it gives us a chance to look at what they were and think about it for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll vote on it while it's here.
Perfect.
Okay.
There was just one thing that came to my mind after the meeting that has been on a couple years ago, but just didn't get on because it tends to be kind of looked at as more of a maintenance items. From the ball field perspective, I know Brian has wanted to put that yellow topping on the ball fields. We've got it on the Callaway field, but we don't have it on the other fields. So it's kind of a safety thing if people are trying to cross the fence. Also, makes the fields look nice. That's about $1,500. So if we want to consider something like that, using a little bit of the 3,000, that's something that, again, we brought up multiple years, but the committee traditionally doesn't like to look at things like maintenance, and that's not something that's necessarily a wow factor, but that's something
Safety
to consider.
factor,
It
maybe.
is a safety
Yeah.
factor. So again, that would be about $1,500. So
Was there some that was kept to roll over from last year?
No, I think what we did is we said we gave a little bit, like a pile to, not pile, an amount of money, a pile of money. Wouldn't that be great? A large amount went to Theodore Allen Park, and we haven't finished that yet. We still have the month of June to do that. So there might be some that didn't get used from that we just didn't need. We won't know until they finish connecting the water, the power, and this concrete at Theodore Allen.
Okay.
In fact, I know that we've had some problems out there with, ATVs and motorcycles. There might be some money left there that we could even consider some fencing or some options to try to keep people from driving through there. We'll see what happens here in the next 3 weeks with that park.
Before we do fence it, let's talk, because we need to talk about where the trail's coming in from the south.
Yeah.
Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, this is just an introduction. Sorry, Betsy. This is
That's okay.
an introduction so that you're all aware of it, and then it'll be on the agenda for 2 weeks from tonight for adoption. If you have input, if you have stuff that you want to see or don't want to see, just get with myself or John, and John will prepare a memo and the packet as an official action item for next council meeting.
This doesn't affect RAP tax, but John, while you're here, it's getting closer to where the senior citizens building won't be available anymore. And so I want to revisit the museum restroom situation. The last I heard, there was some talk about expanding the restroom on the main floor.
I think that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
I've had a couple
Mayor's
of
got some
thoughts
ideas on that.
We're trying to work on.
Okay.
And one person that's actually proposed putting together a toilet in there that will take care of our needs. But I'm actually thinking a little bit deeper, and we're continuing to talk about that.
I know there was discussion of, having an in and out like we have at the rodeo grounds and stuff.
Yep.
It could be used on the outside and then be used on the inside.
Maybe
Yeah.
I misremember, but it seemed like in the discussion I heard that there was talk about combining the restrooms. Well, I hope you're aware that one restroom's on the second floor, one's on the first. There's no way to
No,
combine them.
they would be put elsewhere.
Okay.
It would be on one side of the building or another if that were to happen.
Ground level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So just so you're aware, on the grant funding that we got from CDBG, we do have some funding in there, both from our side and from the MAG side, from the CDBG, to restore power, water, sewer, restrooms, other things that need to be done in there so that we can have that building be functional. Now, it's not going to meet ADA standards because we don't have that kind of funding in there, but we understand the need to have operational restrooms in there to be able to make that work. So that is part of the plan as we go along. The plan isn't completely fleshed out, but we do have some funding set aside or available to help us accomplish that.
I think with a minor retrofitting the south door that's usually chained and locked, you could put something between the parking lot and the door there to make that so that you could get in the building with a wheelchair, at least on the main floor.
Could be, yep. On that south side.
Yeah, the double doors on the south side.
And we've talked about working with Public Works and just maybe putting a little concrete or asphalt to kind of get, because there's groups that get dropped off there that do come in that door.
Right.
I think that's something this summer we could look at.
Thank you.
Mayor, if you don't mind, just an opportunity to shout out. I saw Councilmember Montoya there at the library kickoff.
Summer reading.
Yeah, summer reading kickoff. Several hundred people. A little windy, a little bit of spattering of rain, but we saw lots of our summer camp shirts around. You'll see orange ones, green ones, and blue ones. We've started that in full gear, but between the library reading program and then our little summer passport program, we were handing these out to kids, where at the end of the summer there's a little swim party over in Payson that we fund, and we've got sponsors that participate in this. The kids do activities, and then they go to a business, local business, and they get a stamp. So it's kind of tied in. It benefits our local businesses as well as gives kids things to do in the summer as well. So all that is just off and running.
And your 5K last Saturday too, right?
Yeah, and Councilmember Sidaway is a professional timer now. I don't even need to show him what to do now. He runs the timer, and I was
super complicated.
one exciting thing I was mentioning to Norm that we had a Hispanic gentleman that spoke just a little bit of English and just came by and said, "What are you doing?" And hey, we're going to do a 5K. And he's like, I could tell he was interested. And I said, well, it's not for 15 minutes. Why don't you go get your tennis shoes? And he's like, great, I'll come back. So he come running back in about 15 minutes, and we grabbed him a bib, and he ran and had a great time. And we were just talking how down the road it would be great if we could have a little bit more outreach to our Hispanic population and get them involved in a lot of the activities that we're doing as well. So
I think he was the top 5.
yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll bring a
He was in
couple
the top
friends
5.
next time.
Did well.
I was joking with Norm that he came back and he won the whole thing.
There's one guy who wins every time.
So that was a positive event. There's just almost things every weekend now during the summer. Movies in the Park coming up this weekend, and then we've got, we could just go on and on and on. And you're probably interested. First concert is that last Monday in June. That's the big Army band that comes, that has come before. They're going to be our first one, and then it's smooth sailing the rest of the way. So,
And we're only a mere 7 weeks away from Orchard Days. And all the planning is going on with that. Yeah, just like that fast, right?
everything's to the printer already. So the community services crew is just, they're all doing a great job and working hard. And again, we couldn't do what we do without Parks and Public Works always so supportive of getting our fields ready and bathrooms and all those things that just make things happen. So we appreciate that. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Are there any issues on the upcoming agenda that you would like to talk about for a minute? I think most of it will move through rather quickly. No surprises on the surplus. Shadiva, Nikki McNeff has asked to step down. We want to thank her for her service. We do have a card for her. I met with her this past week and 2 weeks ago, and as bad as she wants to continue, she also has issues that at home that she really wants to focus on, and so it's been a good opportunity for her. We want to appoint LaDawn Moak. I've met with her. I've talked to her for some time. Wonderful lady. Yeah, she's a business lady, her and her husband. And she is even interested in putting a business into Santaquin, but also she wants to be a part of the Planning Commission and to serve. So we still have, even though she will come in and replace Nikki, we still need to look at a person that can come in when we have a missing person that will be there that night.
Alternate?
Yeah, an alternate. And I think if you have some other suggestions, that would be good. Just send them to me. I'll look at them. We do have one name that has been passed around for some time too. So, and then we'll discuss the fee schedule. Now, we did that last year. This is something so we can keep up with the cost of living for the changes in that. It has nothing to do with the taxes or anything else. This is a fee. And the PTIF account authorizations that we need to make. So, and then we'll just go through the usual thing. I do want to say something right now before we close up, and I want to welcome Brandon tonight.
I'm Eric.
It's good to see you. Are you going to stay for the meetings tonight?
I was just dropping off a little love bag.
Were you?
Yeah. Would you accept that?
Oh, yeah. Sheesh.
Is this the
That's
bride
all.
surplus
I hope it's
stuff?
not a
Is this the bride
sandbag,
you're telling us
you
about?
know.
You've had your
We've
fair
seen
share
enough of
sand.
those. Yeah.
So,
Right?
I know Mayor Olson's got my cell phone, but through the other council members. Probably not, right?
Oh, a
Thank
gift with a business card so that we can make sure.
With my cell phone on it,
So
as
the-
I say.
So that the public is aware, this is Commissioner Gordon
Yep.
from the Utah County Commission.
Oh, somebody's.
I think the last time we met,
The guy that Batman calls.
Exactly. So let's see.
Welcome, Commissioner Gordon.
I think the last time we met, you weren't elected yet.
Yeah.
Who probably was? I probably wasn't. Oh,
Yeah.
yours fell off.
We were at a
We're
meeting.
missing one right here. Yeah, we were doing the Trans 50 plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Well, I've sat in your chair for a few years, and so I know that there's probably a secret drawer that you keep your goodies and treats in underneath, so you can get through all. Well, you've got bowls
Right
of
on
candy
top.
right in front, so you're doing it right.
We're
So,
unabashed
Yeah.
snackers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think
Try to hide it.
you council members probably know, but your mayor's doing wonderful to come to his meetings and represent Santaquin City, and so we just really appreciate a good working relationship from the county, and so I just made it a goal to make sure that all the council members knew my cell phone throughout all the county, and if you need me, you can call or text me anytime. The mayor does, and he should, and so we just want to make sure that you know that, and we appreciate all of your
I had a
service.
chance to meet with Peter Quitner on a social basis
Okay.
and pick his brain a little bit about all the emergency services stuff that he's in charge of, and found out the sheriff's office made their own division for emergency services now,
Yeah,
and that's great.
it is great.
Appreciate working with him and the mayor.
Thank you. One of my portfolios is the sheriff's department, and I've
Good.
really been excited about that and getting to know Q. We call him Q,
You're right.
and he's amazing.
The
At
show-
the
Wait a
emergency-
minute. Have you ever talked baseball with him?
I had no idea, but I was at a BYU baseball game, and he called me and he goes, "Well, I played in the Angels organization."
Yeah. You need to have that talk with him.
Well, I
That
said
is-
to him,
it's
I
a
said-
half an hour talk you need to have.
Well, I said, "Wait, Q." I said, "There's this thing called the internet, right? So if you're just teasing me, I can look you up."
Oh no, you'll
And
find
he
it
goes,
in there.
"Go ahead." And sure enough, he was in the Angels organization, and yeah. So
You need the one-on-one with
Okay.
him though,
I'll do that
and
while
then
we're
call me after you've
filling
had it.
sandbags.
Yeah.
All he needs is a British accent and a big tool bag, right?
Exactly.
To call him Q.
It's right on all of the superhero type movies.
Right.
Good job, Norm. So, well, you know how to get a hold of us, and if there's something you guys really need, we really want to make sure that you know that Utah County's
I do have two things.
beautiful.
And they probably will require one-on-one somehow, and maybe I need to figure out how to get onto an agenda one day and just talk about it, but
Okay.
maybe I'll need to do it one-on-one before we do that. The other thing is, at the end of the last MAG meeting, something like that, when we were talking about the proposal of the millions of dollars that the state sent out, it was a chance to take the mayors and councils from Payson and Spanish Fork and Salem and Woodland Hills and Eagle Mountain and Spanish Fork and drive it all the way to Provo through Springville, whatever, to get a trail that connects the region rather than a bike commuter trail. And look at it more seriously. To go 20 miles on a bicycle, you can do it in an hour easily, and an old guy can do it. I've proven that.
You have an e-bike then.
Yeah, of course I do. But that's what they're talking about with these new
That's
ones.
what I'm saying. Yeah, I know.
So really, it's a regional outlook, and we need to make sure that you guys are kind of buying into this and looking at it, because this can make a lot of difference rather than one city grab for as much money as he possibly can, and another city get shortchanged, or another one get the other half. And I think if we look at it as a regional project rather than throw us a bone, I think we would do much, much better, including the county getting a share for the county spaces that we have to cover here. Identify the trail and put that money into a really good thing. So,
Our hope, and you're well aware of the fifth passing, right? And what that means for Santaquin, but that money also comes to Utah County and we get to spend it throughout, right? And so it's been a number of years since we've had the kind of seats that we have on the UTA board. And Commissioner Gardner and myself have been asked by the governor to sit on that. So to have two commissioners, we've come a long way at the state level. And so we've been going to those UTA meetings and making sure that this regional, the physical transportation plan that you're talking about, trails, and bike trails, it's really top of their mind, because now you can get on your e-bike and you can really go to work and you don't have to use a car in many cases, and I think UDOT and UTA starting to realize the importance of that.
well, the safety is,
And then
that's
get 'em off the
what we
main road.
talked about. Yeah,
Safety.
is get them off, because everybody up north, they've got trails. Draper, he talked about 120 miles of trails in his city. And the whole thing is, let's get together, let's put our heads together, but let's do it smart so that we don't put up signs that say this is a bike trail and paint a white line and hope people don't get run over. It's do away with the markers, and the markers are generally a cross that somebody puts up on the side of the road where somebody gets run over, and we're already in the midst of some of those type of discussions. But it's time now to look at a regional way in which we can drive this. So,
I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
Good.
Mayor, if I may, Commissioner, have you got any kind of an update on the county line adjustment possibilities?
It's my understanding that we're meeting on, it's on my calendar. We were supposed to meet last night at 8 p.m., but it's been rescheduled to another date. And if Commissioner Gardner can't make it, me and Tom are committed for that date.
Are you going to Juab to do it?
I don't know where the location is. I just said.
So no
I'll be
wonder
there.
it didn't happen last night.
It's my understanding they canceled it for last night, because I was committed to drive down at 8 o'clock last night, right? Was when it was. And I think if it's not next Tuesday at 9 a.m., it's a Tuesday at 9 a.m.
If you could just let us know on that, we're very involved in that, and we need to make sure that that's something that we're involved in as much as possible, mainly because we've got houses that are starting to being platted towards that direction. We're still, because of the downturn in the housing numbers right now, we're still a little ways away from that, but we're not that far away from it, and we're going to end up having the same situation that Draper and Lehigh had with crossing the boundary with I can't remember, 23 or 26 lots split in half in Juab and half in Utah County. So we really need to get something going on that if we can.
I show the 20th at 9. And again, I didn't look at where it was, but I should have. Let's see here. I'm showing in Nephi. 160 North Main. Is that Juab County's building probably?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the old high school.
Okay. So
Okay.
So-
Thank you.
our plan is to be there. Was that the second thing you wanted to bring up, Mayor?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's separate from that, but I need to have it either one-on-one to start with, and then we'll see if we can work that direction.
Beautiful.
It's a big project.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
I didn't really want to bother some of our staff for fear that I've already put too much on them.
They look exhausted.
Remember that, Norm.
We gotta take Jason. We gotta take Jason to Mexican again. Get
We're
him
going to take that
revised.
as a compliment that we look
You
exhausted.
do. That is absolutely a compliment.
You need to come to the new Aroma Cafe in the morning and have
Oh.
breakfast or lunch.
Okay.
Amazing.
I like those kind of invites.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Maybe
with a
we need to
nickname
go
like
before
Gordo,
you
you
head.
don't miss meals. You know what I mean? So, thanks for letting me interrupt you, and you guys can harass me anytime. So
Okay, well, everybody's got your phone now.
that's what I want.
So we're selling it to a scam provider that can give us a little more money.
We're really
But
not.
they won't give chocolate. So I will keep your number in confidence because you gave me chocolate. So I don't know about these other turkeys, but
It's all good. I get plenty of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks for everything.
Thank
You
you.
guys appreciate all you do. Okay. Thank you.
Yay.
All right.
Mayor, we did have one other thing on the agenda, item number 3 on the work session agenda, to discuss.
Coast Guard 2 lot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We probably ought to run over that real quickly.
So this is a proposed 2-lot subdivision that's moving through the process right now. Through that process, there was a desire for the applicant to entertain a deferral agreement. As we look at this, don't even know if this really qualifies for a deferral agreement, because in our code, it alludes to deferral agreements happening in the core area of town, which this is not. And then also, it's adjacent to existing infrastructure, which is one of the things that criteria that we go by of whether or not a deferral agreement can be approved or not. I mean, just really in general, deferral agreements are used for areas which are in the core area of town that we don't know where infrastructure needs to go quite yet. This is an area where we do have more of an idea where infrastructure would go. But nonetheless, they asked about it and they were interested. As you can see, they have sidewalk on the west side of the property there. It's that corner lot right there. But it's the north side, they don't have any infrastructure. And so instead of going through the process of putting together an agreement and bringing it to the council for your consideration on a regular agenda, we thought run it by you and see if the council has any interest in even considering a deferral agreement for a situation like this. Now, let me say that I think we could probably work out an agreement if that's what the direction the council wanted to go. I don't know as if code would need to change in order for that to happen, but our code that does talk about infrastructure improvements and when there may be a scenario when it may not be prudent to put in the infrastructure improvements now, but to defer those improvements to another time, this does not fit within those criteria. So we just wanted some guidance, and we wanted to respect the requests that had been made, and wanted to get your direction or input on whether or not you think this is something that you would even want to entertain.
It doesn't appear that there's any adjoining sidewalk on the north side,
So no, the adjoining sidewalk would be right there on the corner.
but there's none on the south side,
The north side, there's no
south side of the road.
south side of the road. Correct. Yep.
The property left and right doesn't have it either.
That's correct. On 900.
Yeah.
That's correct.
To me, it doesn't seem wise to have just one person in the middle of the block put in sidewalk, curb, and gutter if his neighbors don't have it.
Well, and so this is why we're bringing it to you, is because, like I say, we generally have not entertained deferral. I should say the city has not entertained deferral agreements for where we know infrastructure would need to go. Again, deferral agreements are for areas where we don't have a storm drain design for that area yet. But one of the criteria also in the code is that if there's public safety concerns with having infrastructure out there, maybe in a kind of in an isolated area, and it's sticking out from the neighboring property, then that could be something there. But again, this is something we wanted to get your direction on before we worked in that direction, and it may be something that sets a precedence. We have criteria that explains when a deferral agreement would be considered, and this doesn't meet the criteria. But I guess this is more of a question of, does the council want to entertain having the flexibility for any and all situations to defer improvements, subdivision infrastructure improvements. So anyways, we're looking for your direction. This is obviously a work meeting and there's no action or anything, but before we go down this road, we wanted to get your direction on whether you think this is a good idea to entertain deferral agreements for these types of situations.
Well, I will say that I think that the criteria was developed for a reason, and one of the things that I would like to discuss in my report later on is an email that we all received from a resident complaining about speeding on 200 West and requesting if maybe a stop sign or what possibly. I saw that the mayor responded to that email today, but there's a protocol for that as well. There's a protocol for stop signs, there's a protocol for crosswalks, and the reason that those exist is to use a professional field of standard for those decisions instead of having them be political. And that's how I feel about this too. If there's a criteria that exists, then we need to follow the criteria. And if enough council members want to look at changing the criteria, they can request to bring it. But for the time being, I think that we need to follow the criteria that is already in place. That's my opinion.
So is it a recommendation to do anything about that?
Well, I'll make my comment. I'm with Councilmember Montoya. I feel like that if we're going to do this, we might as well let's look at the whole thing, right, and redo it all. Because if you don't and you open that can of worms, you've lost it anyway. As far as everybody who wants to come in is going to have that want the same thing. So either we, as a council, go back and look at the requirements or not. As far as I'm concerned right now, if it don't fit, then I'm not in favor of it. So, but I'm just.
I have one feeling, and that is until we get a comprehensive wastewater plan or flood mitigation plan or storm drainage plan, along with where do we put the water, which is the plan, it's really hard for any kind of legislation to take place. Right now, the only thing that we've got is the core area of town. And that is one place where millions of dollars are gonna go into it in the planning before we even dig the first pipe, put the first curb in. And we're a long ways from that, I think.
Well, and that's all I'm saying. I can go along with that. Then to me, then we need to go back and address it and open that up more than just the core.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would indicate that we do have a comprehensive master plan. However, this is one of the areas in the master plan that has said, well, you do nothing, or you can do this, or you can do this. And nothing obviously leaves us with situations like this. You do part of it, and then it may be a partial fix, or you do all of it, and it could be literally tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
I think the 2017 number, if I remember correctly, was about $29 million just for the 54 blocks of the area of the core area of town, which is 4th to 4th and 4th to 3rd, as far as north, south, east, west goes. But we do have a master plan. This is just one of those areas in the master plan that has given us some options and some things to think about. But we really, there's not really any definitive way to go about doing that at this point in time because of the potential costs, right? There's different, this is an ideological and a philosophical and a policy decision of how do you do this? So if we take the core area of town, for instance, the core area of town likely has a socioeconomic class that is probably lesser than some of the other areas where people would say, well, my subdivision already has curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and I paid for that when I bought my home because that was part of the cost of the subdivision. Versus, I shouldn't be doing that for the core area of town, right, or for areas that are not benefiting me directly. So, and if you go that direction, again, I'm not advocating for one way or another, but if you go that direction, then you put, potentially, in some cases, we've seen it as high as $100,000 or more to do because some people have corner lots.
Yeah.
And it could be more than $100,000 just to be able to split a lot into two to do those improvements. The other issue and why it was more generally located in the core area of town is because there's still a lot of ditches, very wide right of ways of 99 feet or 132 feet or 66 feet. And do we need all of that right of way, and do we need all of that? So there's a lot of unanswered questions that really still need to be answered as far as the overall general picture for our storm drain master plan of where we're going to go, and a lot of money potentially too.
And another factor as I've thought about this, because again, we're asking the question and we're respecting the request that was made. We usually don't get requests that are kind of outside the core area. But the thing for me with this one that would be hard is when are the improvements going to be done? We defer those improvements in the core area because we don't quite know where the design of that will be, or we don't know if we're going to do curb gutter or if we're going to do swells or whatever. That hasn't been planned out yet. But this area, we know it's going to be curb and gutter, and we're going to defer. We're going to kick that can down the road. But what's the kicker to actually fulfill that agreement and say, okay, we're ready to build infrastructure. Here's it. When we get more of the neighbors that are also in deferral agreements, I don't think a lot of those neighbors are ever going to propose a subdivision. They probably can't propose a subdivision because their lot's not big enough. So there is going to come a point where, in order to you've heard us talk about our classification as or our lack thereof of an MS4, that at some point we're going to have to follow. We're going to have to monitor and take care of the SWIP requirements ourselves rather than have the state do it. And there's going to be some pretty big projects that we're going to have to do in order to address storm drainage. So again, just trying to put all the different angles of how to look at these types of requests. But I think, I've heard some direction, and unless there's anything more, I think we'll take that and let them know that this is not a property that probably is going to qualify, or it doesn't qualify, but probably not going to be considered by the council otherwise.
For a deferral agreement.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? We need to adjourn for a minute. However, I just wanted to say one thing in this. On our tax information that we've been sending out, we have had a few responses. We've sent letters back to, emails back to probably 20 people or so at this point, give or take a little bit. And some of those were clarifications. A lot of the answers were right off of the website, but we've put them back on the website so people can continue to learn. I even got a call yesterday from a concerned citizen that I know fairly well. He says, this is all really good, except there's a couple of things I didn't understand as I went down through it. We clarified some of that. We put it back into to an update, and it's just answering those questions. And maybe we look at it at a big level and forget there's a little part here or there. If you get those kind of things, let's just make sure we have an answer and do the very best that we can to make sure we're being brought up to date, but also answering the questions of those that have them concerning this. Along with that, tomorrow night at 5:30.
6:30, Mayor.
Tomorrow night at 5:30, KSL is going to be here, and I'm going to be working with them through a few things. I'd sure like to invite, if you guys want to show up, you're more than welcome to be here. And I don't know if she wanted a one-on-one. It might not be bad to gang up, but there are some things that I feel vulnerable to, and that is knowing the qualifications of somebody that wants to grill you possibly on something that you've studied on for a year solid, but many years before and after, with how much knowledge does any person that writes a news or writes an email for that matter have if they don't know the process. And really what we're teaching through our process, this tax information, is so that people, all of us, can understand that the tax money doesn't get thrown into the general fund. The tax money is going only to police and fire in the ways that it's prescribed. And, we need to make sure those are extremely clear all the way through, that monies that were spent or gathered 10 years ago to go to the roads, we have put 4 times that amount nearly into the roads, which shows we are pulling other monies out to subsidize that. However, we continue and hope to be at 100% very shortly on just the road part. And there's others that will fall short because we started early. They're 10 years out on their life cycle. We're trying to make the life cycle of the roads last. The same thing with the police and fire. As we are working with these funds, they are going just to those 2 departments, and it's taking care of the needs that we have to ensure we have a good police and fire department and the best that we can possibly do. So I just wanted to tell you those things. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Eyes above the nose counts.